For the first time, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be on the other side of a Danielle Hunter attack. So how do you deal with it, and how do you deal with the Texans in general? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. I appreciate you all so very much. Hashtag everydayers. The backbone of this channel and the Locked On Network. So thank you so much for hanging out. If you're new here, hello and welcome. You can find Locked On Vikings wherever you find your favorite podcasts Monday through Friday. Just search it out. You can also find the show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. And if you have SiriusXM or the SiriusXM app, you can find Locked On Vikings there, and you can find Vikings games. Just search out Vikings and you'll find live hometown broadcasts of any Vikings games like the upcoming tilt with the Houston Texans. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So today on the show, we got a lot to do. We have the Zoever Under, where we look at the week's betting lines to see if we can't get a sense for how everybody feels about this game, as well as your bold predictions. But first, we, of course, have a couple of familiar faces coming to Minnesota as the Houston Texans come to visit. A bunch of Houston Texans on the Minnesota side, including Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman. We talked about them a bunch yesterday with Locked On Texans. So if you want to listen to that and a more thorough preview of this game, that is what we talked about on Crossover Thursday. Also, somebody called me out. I totally forgot Shaq Griffin was a Texan. I think of him as a Seahawk formerly still, but I forgot he was a Texan just last year. So there's a revenge game angle there, but of course it's Stephon Diggs and Danielle Hunter. We talked a lot about Diggs yesterday, but not a ton about what Hunter was going to do and how the Vikings were going to handle Danielle Hunter. And first, we have to understand what Danielle Hunter is and confirm that the Texans are doing the same thing with him that the Vikings did. To a point, at least when it comes to alignment. So according to Next Gen Stats, it does, alignment heat maps. Danielle Hunter lines up in roughly the same place every play over the course of a game. That's about what he did with the Vikings too. Danielle Hunter's superpower, I would say, the thing that he is best at as a pass rusher is the long game. Sacrificing the right reps and playing in a way where he busts out. He'll use the same pass rush move over and over and over again, even if it's losing, until a crucial third down, he'll do something that sort of plays off of whatever that expectation is that he created. Playing that long game is what led to all of those very cool third down sacks over the years, and always that clutch moment, right? So now we have to contend against that. And by the way, I looked at Next Gen Stats. He did that against the left tackle of the Colts, who is, I think, a third rounder, and against the right tackle of the Bears, which is Darnell Wright. So my understanding of the Bears, I don't know, Bears fans, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Darnell Wright is the better tackle over there. He's the guy that you trust a little bit more, and that Will Anderson would have then had their left tackle who they don't trust as much at all. And those guys, for the most part, stayed there all day long. So the Texans are hunting matchups here. They're not hunting strong side, weak side. And there are disadvantages to that the Vikings put up with the whole time Danielle Hunter was here, and basically decided that those were worth it. But if you're game planning, the goal is to maximize those disadvantages, right? So how do you do that? Or do we let this edge thing just be a totally moot point and run up the middle all day? That's duo. I just posted a Patreon post. It's a quickie about Aaron Jones, who has been very good. And I think has really helped unlock a lot of the parts of the Vikings run game, but also paper over issues in the Vikings run game. Loving what Aaron Jones is doing so far. And one of the things the Vikings have had the most success with is duo. I give a whole crash course on duo in that video, but if you are unfamiliar with duo, it is two double teams on the two defensive tackles. So you just got 4v2 and you just try to push him and the running back follows behind. That's basically the play. It is obviously everything is more complicated than that. but that's pretty much it. And if the for whatever reason something goes wrong, someone gets through, there's a blitz, they don't get the right push. If there's any reason that the running back doesn't like it, he bounces outside. So you're not reading gap to gap to gap to gap like you do in zone. You're reading forward, north-south, or east-west. And the way that Aaron Jones is making that decision is very aggressive. But he's a 7-year vet. And you can tell that he knows exactly what he can and can't get away with in terms of when he's going to bounce those outside. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes, double team gets blown up and you go, crap, I got to bounce this one. But there will come times where there's 3 yards in a cloud of dust ahead of you. And the coaching point is take your 3 yards in a cloud of dust most of the time. Or I can try to get the edge and make this thing explosive. And you have to make that decision and decide how greedy you're going to be. This idea of running back greed, I talked about it a lot last year when we were comparing, Alexander Mattison to Cam Akers before he got hurt, because those two are like on total opposite ends of that spectrum. Mattison was very conservative. He would always take his 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So it would never go explosive. And even, sometimes people would call him out for like, quote unquote, having bad vision, when in reality, he's seeing a hole that may close up soon and become a negative play. So he's not going to go for it. He's just going to take his safe yard. So he's very good at avoiding negative plays. There's a place for that on your team. And it seems like the Raiders are actually pretty happy with that from him. But Cam Akers was the other way, where he would always go greedy. So you would get the negative plays, but he had a little bit more explosive potential. And then that kind of thunder lightning thing can work well in tandem. Aaron Jones finds a way to have his cake and eat it too in this regard. He'll take the conservative yards when it's the correct thing to do, but he will often make kind of greedy decisions that you would call maybe off-book decisions, but he knows exactly what he can and can't get, right? So he will say, I can get that edge. I'm going to get that edge. Yeah, my 4 yards and a cloud of dust are there, and it's 2nd and 5, and that's actually good. But the corner has overplayed this, and I'm going to get outside. There's a veteran wile to that, but still having the speed and burst to be able to act on those insights is what's making him very cool. But what's really good about Duo is that it attacks the D tackles, and it leaves the D ends one-on-one. So you got to trust Christian Darrisaw, and the problem is you got to trust a tight end one-on-one against the other D end. So it's a tempting idea, but the problem is that you'll have to find a way to solve. You're going to have Johnny Munt one-on-one with Danielle Hunter. That might not be great. And you can't, Duo doesn't happen without that matchup. That's a necessary evil of Duo just because of the way that the numbers work out. But there are ways to solve that, right? You could turn that into a double. You could run it out of 12 personnel and have 2 tight ends on Danielle Hunter, and now it's 3 doubles across the board. That's a common, popular way to run Duo, or get CJ Ham involved in kind of a similar way. You could try to widen them out with certain formations, or you could try to attack these ends by running directly at them, which seems counterintuitive, right? Let's run at Danielle Hunter doesn't seem exactly like something that a lot of teams are going to want to do, but if you can run directly at him, that means that you can have the running back read him, and he can win his block all he wants. Aaron Jones can make him wrong. That's another way to deal with this. But at the end of the day, that's all run game stuff. In pass pro, you can chip him, and I kind of anticipate that the Vikings are going to do a lot of chipping. Or you can, double him. You can keep extra players in pass pro. If you're willing to sacrifice those routes and have, 2 route, 3 route concepts, you can keep extra players in pass pro. But at the end of the day, the cat and mouse is going to be with our tackles, Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, guys we trust a lot, going toe-to-toe with the same guy every time. I don't know how the Texans are going to match this up, but that's something to watch right at the outset. Where's 55? Where's 51? Wherever those guys are, they're probably going to stay there for most, if not all, of the game, and you're going to have a matchup that grows and evolves as these guys burn moves on each other. And counters to counters on each other, and sort of strategize and feel each other out. And in the fourth quarter, all of the fruits of that labor come out and show themselves. And that's going to be what I think decides these matchups, is whoever wins in the fourth quarter in these matchups, maybe they sacrifice quarters 1, 2, and 3 to do it. And if it's close, that might end up being worth it. So it's an interesting thing to game plan for. But let's see what the market actually thinks of where the Vikings are going to end up here against the Houston Texans. And we've got your bold predictions coming up as well. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Fanduel, the supplier of all of the betting lines we are about to talk about for the Zoever under. So we'll get into a whole bunch of different props for Vikings, Texans, but whatever of it you like, or if you want to smash together a ridiculous parlay or go bet on something else, go do an emotional hedge on the Green Bay Packers, or I don't know, bet on the Lynx. They're very good. Or bet against the Twins because that seems to be happening. Whatever you want to do, go to fanduel.com. So until Sunday, you're running out of time here, but up until Sunday, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season and Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook, then lay $5 down on a money line or a player prop or just, your classic over-under or a spread, whatever it is that you want, and get that free trial for 3 weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So what does the world think of the Minnesota Vikings now that they're kind of a surprising 2-0? One way to find out, it's the Zoever under. Welcome to the Zoever under, where usually my rabbits will pick the game. I ran out of time before we had to put them with where they're going to stay for the weekend because we're going to be out of town for the weekend, so we will not have rabbit picks for this one. I apologize, everyone. But the point of this is to get a sense, not necessarily predicting these bets. You can go take whatever you want, put $5 down, and get your FanDuel NFL Sunday Ticket bonus, but more to get a sense for exactly what the market thinks is going to happen here. That's really what these betting lines are. They're a reflection of public opinion. So, for example, the Vikings are 2.5-point home underdogs. They were 6.5-point home underdogs at points last week. I think it fell to like 4.5 once it was clear that Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to play. But that still gave you a sense that the world really thought the 49ers were going to cruise. 6.5 is a lot. That means you were like a true favorite, and that beating them was a true upset. 2.5 is less extreme, and really the barrier here is 3 because the hook point, as it is called, is it takes quite a bit of public perception to push you from 2.5 back to 3. It was actually down to 2 at points over the course of the week when it kind of seemed like maybe Justin Jefferson wouldn't play. But he will play. He has been very insistent on that. He was a full participant in practice on Thursday, as well as a whole bunch of players that you might have seen an injury report, like Brian O'Neill and a whole bunch of other players that were DNPs on Wednesday with, various dings and bruises and stuff. But everybody but Jordan Addison and Dallas Turner were full participants, and then the ones that have been limited all week. Like Justin Jefferson, I think was listed as limited again, actually, now that I think about it. I think I said it was full before. That was wrong. He's limited. But everybody else upgraded to full. Kevin O'Connell said that Wednesday they were just being like a little extra restful. It was a very physical game against San Francisco, so they were letting people kind of have a practice off and made good on that. Thursday, okay, everybody's back. He wasn't just like lying to placate the media. But so it's now all but confirmed that Justin Jefferson will play. But interestingly, FanDuel still doesn't let you do a prop on any Vikings receivers at all. There's nobody on their receiving props page right now, and that's something very typical of when, if Justin Jefferson's on the injury report at all, they're kind of just going to say, we don't, because we don't know what's going to happen here, right? So they just take him off, and you can bet on Texans receivers all you want. But some other lines that I thought were kind of informative here that sort of tell us what public opinion is. Vikings are 2.5-point dogs at home, so second week in a row that they're home underdogs. Home underdogs are always a trendy bet because, chip on your shoulder, all that. But the over-under is actually 45. So these over-unders have been lowering a lot over the last couple of weeks. And because the Vikings defense, I think, has kind of proven that they're better than everybody thought, 45 is still kind of right in the average, though. So if you think this will be a low-scoring game, and I kind of do, I think the Texans defense has ways to really give that Vikings offense problems. And a lot of it is the Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson thing that I just talked about. A couple of solutions that I like, but like even those have major caveats, like Johnny Munt maybe 1v1ing one of these guys. So there's a lot of problems there. Plus Derek Stingley, great corner. Like Houston's defense has dogs on it. And moving the ball is going to be difficult. If the Vikings can, it'll be very impressive. But I think on the other side of the ball, the Vikings have some dogs on their side. And of course, the whole Flores thing, which is just so white hot right now, where a receiving core with guys like Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, very good core, I still think that they have the tools that they need to slow that down. Considering the skill troop that they just saw in San Francisco, they've kind of proven that mettle. So I kind of like the under. And maybe that's something the market is like underreacting to, is how good Flores' defense has been and how good the Texans' defense has been. Some other lines of interest. Darnold is at 234. I forget what I think his line was like in the 220s last week. So that kind of tells you that public perception is slowly warming up to Sam Darnold. If once those lines move up and up and up and up, that, people are expecting him a little bit of a better performance. But interestingly, his interception prop still minus 140. That's probably appropriate. If you aren't familiar with how these betting odds work, of course, if it's got a minus in front of it, that means it's better than 50-50. So minus 140 means essentially, 1 to 1.4 kind of, or 2 to 1.4 or whatever it is odds. That's a slightly better than 50% chance that there's going to be an interception. So if you think Sam Darnold can keep it clean, there's actually value on that, but you got to think that Sam Darnold can keep it clean, and the very much the public does not. One I found interesting was that CJ Stroud and Sam Darnold had very similar passing attempt props, 34.5 and 32.5 respectively. So CJ Stroud just a couple of attempts higher, but there is sort of a sneaky angle there where you could look at the attempts and say, I think one of these teams will be leading. Like if you think that it will be a game that sort of one team will want to slow down, you can hit that quarterback's attempts under and see if that kind of rides out the way that you think. So if you are, say, thinking that the Texans will be ahead a lot for this game, and that the Vikings will be playing from behind, maybe even make a comeback, but they'll be playing from behind, you're going to get a lot of run game from the Texans in that case. Something interesting, though, is that Joe Mixon is not looking very likely to play. I didn't mention Jordan Addison and Danielle Hunter. Neither of them look likely to play. Both of them targeting week 4 returns would be my guess. I mean, I don't really know about Jordan Addison, but Danielle Hunter said, yeah, I'm out this week, but I'm targeting next week. And I don't know. Addison missing a couple weeks, and weeks 4 or 5 has always felt like the vibe to me. But both of those guys possibly staying out, and then no Joe Mixon. So who they're actually going to run the ball to is sort of a mystery. We hashed that out a little bit yesterday with Cody Davis on Locked On Texans. And so we don't really know what's going to go on there. The Vikings, completely frozen out of receiving props. And then Aaron Jones, 48.5 rushing. I think he was fairly limited rushing last week. I don't think he hit his over, if I recall. I don't remember what it was, but I don't think he quite hit his over because the Vikings ended up throwing the ball quite a bit more, and then you had a little bit more Ty Chandler than we all thought because Aaron Jones left the game with that hip injury, which kept him, I think, limited on Wednesday, but he was a full participant on Thursday. So you lost a little bit on him, but I still think 48.5 is a number he can definitely hit if the Vikings can get it going up the middle. But they have to be able to get it going up the middle. So what will happen in this game? I have your craziest ideas, your boldest predictions coming up next. Today's Locked On Vikings episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And for as long as it is September on the calendar, you have this Caleb Williams thing, where one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win. So throw that into your play and you can increase your payouts, and you can pretty much have a free increase to your payouts. No matter how bad Caleb Williams plays, he'll get the one passing yard probably. And this has been wildly abusable. I mean, I put it in every single play I've had in PrizePicks, and it has very often made the difference so that I could make more conservative plays and only have like 2 squares in it. But have, a 2 square play, but with a 3 square payout, right? That's the advantage here. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. It's time to get bold. It's time for your bold predictions, which is the segment where I go over the craziest thing that slithered out of your broken little brains. So let's review what we did for bold predictions last week. Grill said that the number 18 Jefferson would put up at least 49 PPR fantasy points. He had a very good game, not quite 49. Get Quackin' said that in honor of the one struck with gold fever, the final score would be 18-49, which is scoregami. I said that I would accept any scoregami. 23-17 is not scoregami, I regret to inform you. It was actually almost exactly the score from last year. Somebody actually had that in the bold predictions, and there were a couple people in the bold predictions thing that did. I mean, there's like 150 of them, so somebody is going to get something right, but it has to be the ones that I picked. But congratulations to you if you did get one. Sports Guy 79 said that every touchdown in the game would occur on a play with orbit motion. Maybe you can try to count the one that Justin Jefferson had because he like cut all the way across the field as some sort of orbit, but that's not what you were talking about. And Hodunk Mo said no running backs or quarterbacks would score touchdowns in the game. That would have had to be like only Deebo Samuel touchdowns, rushing touchdowns or trick play kind of stuff. And we almost did have a Ty Chandler to Johnny Munt touchdown, but Johnny Munt got mogged in the route, got tripped up, and Ty Chandler had to eat it. But that play kind of, like that design kind of worked. It's just that Johnny Munt got smoked on the route. Swede's Goal said that the winner of the game would be the team whose kicker reached 200 yards in total field goal yards made first. So Will Reichard kicked 3 field goals, but unfortunately they were all, I mean, that wouldn't get you to 200 anyways, but they were all too short. We would have had to have like several more field goals. And Sketch Conk said that Sam Darnold would hurdle a defender for a rushing TD. We didn't get there. For week 3, you guys sent in quite a bit. You guys did great. I had trouble paring it all down. So if I didn't pick yours, don't worry. Keep trying. I was very happy to see what you guys were able to put forward. So the first one comes from Scoliosis, who said, by the way, a million of these are revenge game angles, which I of course, you guys went that way. So I took a few of them, but this is going to be a lot of what we get. That Shat Griffin would get a pick against Stephon Diggs, number 1 versus number 1. Harrison Smith would force a Cam Akers fumble, number 22 versus number 22. And since the Vikings don't have a 55, Will Reichard would hit a 55-yard field goal. These will be parlayed. All 3 of these have to hit for this bold prediction to hit. And I love the stupid place where your head is at, and I feel open to taking more like this. FS Duar said that Stephon Diggs would lead both teams in targets, but won't record a catch. That one really made me laugh because of the thing of Stephon Diggs when he was in his last couple years here was how he wasn't getting enough targets. Well, here's your targets, Stephon, but he won't get any catches. He'll be strapped up by Stephon Gilmore or whoever. I don't know what the Vikings are going to do, by the way. They had Gilmore shadowing Neighbors, but I don't think they shadowed last week, so I don't know what they're going to do. They might have flipped sides with somebody, but they're not going to have these guys. I mean, they're not going to have them like carry into the slot and stuff like that, right? So which is Diggs goes into the slot plenty if you want to get him away from a corner. Get him away from the team's best corner. That every team has done that, and the Texans, I do not believe, are any exception. 710 Tate said that Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman cumulative TFLs and sacks would outnumber Diggs's reception total. This one I feel like I'm being a little risky with it because it's not that abnormal for Stephon Diggs to get for a particular receiver to have a 3-catch game because he gets bracketed all day or something like that, right? Like that doesn't feel quite bold enough. So I'm going to make it bolder on you. And I'm going to say that it has to double it. I just need to pump the number up a little bit. I like the heuristic. I like comparing, defensive plays for loss, tackles for loss, basically, in run or pass, and comparing it to a wide receiver's stats. But yeah, I have to change it. Actually, on second thought, let's make this a targets one as well. That'll make the number go up a little bit, but I don't have to arbitrarily just say like double the number. So let's call it targets, so that if he's dropping them left and right and stuff, that's very funny, but that has more to do with the other bold prediction. And let's say that Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman's cumulative TFLs and sacks outnumber Diggs's target total. Greg Denzer says that both Vikings on the roster with the last name Jackson will score a touchdown, Tristan and Theo. This will almost certainly have to happen on special teams, assuming Tristan Jackson dresses and gets snaps at wide receiver. I guess that's something. But otherwise, this will have to happen on special teams. Theo Jackson hasn't gotten in a lot on defense. They've been pretty satisfied with the 3 safeties and the 3 corners when they have 6 D-backs. That kind of feels like the DBs with Flores. It's kind of like the way that like Mike Zimmer would approach O-line sometimes, where it's like just best 5 and put them, and whatever positions that means is what that means. And you would get guys moving back and forth all the time. But it feels kind of like, hey, we've got 3 good safeties, 3 good corners. Those are going to be the guys, and you're not going to be particularly interested in taking like Byron Murphy or like Shaq Griffin off the field so you can put Theo Jackson on the field. But last year, I think they did feel like doing that. And so you saw a little bit more Theo Jackson. So we only get special teams on this one. Ethan says that the Twins and Astros will score more points combined on Sunday than the Vikings and Texans will. This kind of thing has happened in very low scoring games. Look, the Dodgers beat a team 20-3 the day I recorded this. So like it happens. Okay. It is not impossible, but obviously very, very bold. And 1991 Ford Tempo enthusiast said that in honor of the Vikings' all-time record against the Texans being 5-0, the Vikings will lead by a score of 5-0 at some point during the game. I love it. So I haven't brought that up at all because it's a stupid superstition with AFC teams too. It's like you play them every 4 years. Entirely different group of people than the last time the Vikings played. The last time the Vikings played the Texans was 2020. Like Holton Hill was the starting quarterback. Jefferson was still a rookie we weren't sure about, and Adam Thielen was really the leader on the team. And like KJ Osborne, I don't think was on the active roster yet. He was the kick returner. He made it, but only on special teams. He wasn't getting reps from scrimmage. 4 years is a lot, and so it's not a particularly useful statistic. Although I'm sure the Texans will use it as good of bulletin board material as any. But that's a pretty funny bold prediction. Those are the bold predictions for the week. I will see you all on the other side. For full transparency, I will be on the road this weekend. So the recap, I won't be on the postcast, but you still go listen to it with Luke Inman, Sam Ekstrom, Ron Johnson. They will break down the game live on Locked On Minnesota Sports right as the clock hits 000. I'll try to call in if I can, but no promises. And that also means that the Monday episode of Locked On Vikings, the game recap episode of Locked On Vikings, will come from a hotel room in God knows what state that'll come in. Depends a lot on the Wi-Fi quality that I can't really plan for, and so it might be blurry. It might be it look like I'm in a weird hostage situation. Don't worry about it. That'll be a hotel room, but we should be all back to normal on Tuesday. I will see you all next week, and as always, Skull.